From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast, a Wish TV News 8 update.
Hi, this is Hannah Mordeau, and this is your News 8 Daily for Tuesday, April 21st. Another cold start out there this morning, about 44 degrees right now, but don't worry. We're going to warm up a little bit as the day goes on. It's going to be partly cloudy and breezy, but we will get to the mid to upper 70s. IMPD is highlighting a local support system for the families of homicide victims. The department hosted a community event. News 8's Kat Sandoval was there.
Families are left to navigate grief. A free event hosted by IMPD along with the Firefly Children and Family Alliance helps families understand what comes next, walking them through the investigation process and offering support. Edith Akers lost her daughter Sierra 3 months ago.
Cece, she was beautiful. She was very happy and loved and energetic.
On the table is a photograph of Sierra. They tell me life has been a nightmare, and they are hoping to find community and answers here.
As far as the case, what are we looking forward to next? Because I think that our thing is, with the grieving process, is the next step. We finished this, but what's the next step?
Investigators explained why crime scenes can take hours to process. They say time is needed to gather evidence.
We want to give them information on how a homicide investigation, how it unfolds, starting from the crime scene to the prosecution and beyond.
Another homicide survivor is Clarissa Patton. She lost both her brother and husband, and now helps others navigate that grief.
For one, it makes you more grateful for life. It makes you embrace and respect life more than you ever before. I mean, every day I get up, I am so happy to wake up. Every day I go home and I'm safe. I'm glad to be home.
Organizers want families to know that they are not alone. I'm Kat Sandoval for Wish TV, wishtv.com.
A federal court ruling has reinstated Indiana's ban on using college students' IDs to vote. This comes a week after a lower court temporarily blocked the ban. Voters' rights groups argue the change could impact tens of thousands of students, but state leaders say the move strengthens election security. A final decision from an appeals court is expected in a few days. Indiana's primary election is on May 5th. Early voting has been going on for the last 2 weeks. Police in Fisher say a person is dead after a motorcycle crash. It happened just before 8 o'clock last night at the entrance of Harrison Park Housing Subdivision. That's north of Conner Prairie. Police say they have no other information at this time. Indiana State Police say they are investigating a third death at the Miami Correctional Facility. Police say 82-year-old inmate Billy Wilson died on Friday. Online jail records show that Wilson was convicted of murder in 2022 and was serving a 47-year sentence. Police say an autopsy is being completed to determine an exact cause of death. This is the third death at that facility this year. The 2 other deaths were ICE detainees. People in Carmel are weighing in on plans to bring an ICE office to the city. Those for it and against the plan gathered at the Carmel City Council meeting yesterday. Carmel leaders say the office is for administrative purposes only and is not a detention facility.
Council members have noted that it's administrative purposes only. I disagree with that, and I say that this is only just the beginning of what will definitely turn into a major catastrophe.
There's another side of this of people who are immigrants that are supportive of ICE, of supportive of following the rules. Not because they're evil or they want people to get, deported, but because they waited in line.
The city government has posted a webpage with frequently asked questions about the office. City leaders say they do not have any authority to approve or deny federal agencies leasing private offices. New test results that our I-team obtained show that water in Muncie does not have bacteria. That's despite people in the area saying it smells and tastes like dirt. The issue is due to a compound called MIB, which can cause earthy odors. But our I-team learned the substance is not regulated and it is not included in standard testing. Indiana American Water says it is adjusting its treatment process to remove the compound, but officials say the water is safe to drink. Now to the war in Iran. Pakistan is preparing for a new round of talks between the U.S. and Iran. President Trump says the ceasefire is set to expire tomorrow night. Vice President Vance is scheduled to go to the second round of peace talks with Iran, but it is not clear if a deal will be reached. Sherelle Hubbard reports.
Will the fighting resume? President Donald Trump said the ceasefire with Iran will expire Wednesday evening Washington time and said it's, quote, highly unlikely he would extend it.
If there's no deal, fighting resume.
Just for clarity, you're willing to extend the ceasefire if there
Well, we'll
no
see.
deal?
I don't know that we'll have to.
Meanwhile, more peace talks may happen. Vice President J.D. Vance and other senior U.S. officials are expected to leave for Islamabad, Pakistan, Tuesday. Although Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson insists there are no plans for a second round of negotiations, quote, as of now. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian took to X Monday and wrote, deep historical mistrust in Iran toward U.S. government conduct remains, and he criticized what he called unconstructive and contradictory signals from American officials. He closed the message by saying Iranians do not submit to force.
Iranians now know they've got a real strategic asset, more useful than a nuclear weapon, and they've used it. And they don't believe we have an answer for it.
Passage through the Strait of Hormuz has been at the center of a tug of war between the two sides. The U.S. Navy fired on and seized an Iranian cargo ship on Sunday while maintaining its naval blockade. According to Iranian state media, Iran's military warned it would respond. I'm Sherelle Hubbard reporting.
Federal authorities are cracking down on non-approved versions of GLP-1 weight loss medications. iTeam's Kara Kenny has the warning from one local woman and what you need to look out for.
You're familiar with name brand GLP-1s like Ozempic and Wegovy. You can also get GLP-1s online through compounding pharmacies and telehealth websites. The FDA issued a warning saying these compounded versions have not been safety tested or approved by the FDA.
Tanner Frankel has struggled with her weight since she was a teenager.
I've done Atkins, I've done calorie counting, I've done Weight Watchers, I've had gastric surgeries. I mean, I've tried it all.
The Greenwood mom lost 12 pounds on Zepbound, a name brand GLP-1.
And unfortunately, I lost my insurance.
Desperate to not regain what she lost, Tanner went online.
I started researching the telehealth GLP-1s. It asked me my name, my date of birth, my weight, my age, my height. It gave me my body mass index, which I know is way up there. And it was like, we will submit this to the physician. We should hear something within 24 hours. It was like 20 minutes.
Did you ever have to talk to a doctor?
I never talked to a doctor. It was strangely easy.
Tanner paid $800 for a 6-month supply of semaglutide.
So this is the package that I received from the pharmacy.
What Tanner didn't know is she's injecting a compounded version of a GLP-1.
These are not approved by the FDA. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
The FDA is cracking down. It says companies are mass marketing their GLP-1s as similar alternatives to FDA-approved drugs. The feds issued warning letters to 30 companies alleging they're making false or misleading claims regarding compounded GLP-1 products offered on their websites. Among the feds' concerns, telehealth companies saying their products contain the same active ingredient as Wegovy, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Zepbound. The FDA letter says your claims imply that your products have been FDA approved or otherwise evaluated for safety and effectiveness when they have not.
I think that people are very, very confused about the difference between name brand, Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy, and then these compounded drugs. The consumers, I don't think have any idea the difference and they don't understand.
Whitney DeBona is an attorney and advocate with Drug Watch, which connects patients who've been harmed by drugs with legal help.
It's kind of like the wild, wild west right now. And, you know, I think a lot of companies we're going to see maybe shifting away from this custom approach because they are afraid that the FDA could come in any day and shut them down and say you can't do this anymore.
IU Associate Professor George Ball has a different take.
This is capitalism at its best.
He studies the FDA and regulated drugs.
To a large extent, the FDA created this problem themselves. They set up a policy where compounders could work around FDA approval guidelines in cases of shortages.
But right now, there is no shortage of GLP-1 medications, and companies like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk hold patents, meaning we are years away from FDA-approved generic alternatives in the United States. Ball says it's time for the FDA to update its policies.
Encourage more generic drug approvals. Do it the right way. Or inspect these compounders and make them actual legitimate legal entities.
The I-Team reached out to the FDA to ask if they're considering any policy changes.
The FDA responded saying compounded drugs may pose higher risks to patients, including variability in potency, contamination, or improper formulation. Federal law places clear limits on compounding. The Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding is pushing back against the FDA's crackdown. Its CEO says a 2002 Supreme Court decision protects truthful advertising for compounded drugs. Quote, the court made clear that lawful pharmacies cannot be broadly prohibited from communicating truthful information about their services. He went on to say, if the concern is that marketing itself has become too big, that's a much murkier concept and one that raises real legal and policy questions.
Transparent, simple, no fine print.
Tanner says she has not lost any weight on the compounded GLP-1.
Just not doing anything. I'm wasting my time is how it feels.
She's considering going off the medication.
Why share your story?
I just want to make sure that people understand that now that I've learned that it's not FDA approved, that it's not FDA approved, to be careful.
Kara Kenny, I-Team.
Indianapolis-based pharmaceutical giant Lilly is applauding the move, saying for far too long, compounders have been putting patients at risk by mass-producing knockoff drugs using substandard. You can read Lilly's full statement, along with a statement from Novo Nordisk on our website. Just go to wishtv.com right now. FBI Director Kash Patel is suing The Atlantic over an article published last week that claims he excessively drinks alcohol. Patel has filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit. He says The Atlantic published the article with actual malice, the legal standard needed to prove a defamation case against a public official. Actual malice means the author knew the information was false but published it anyway. The Atlantic says Patel's suit is meritless. Singer David, whose legal name is David Burke, is pleading not guilty to a murder charge in the death of a 14-year-old girl. Attorneys in L.A. charged him yesterday with first-degree murder, lewd acts with a person under 14, and mutilating a body. It's the first concrete move in the case in 7 months after Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found dead. Her body was discovered inside an impounded Tesla that was registered to Burke. Her family reported her missing in 2024. Burke is being held without bail. Apple CEO Tim Cook is stepping down. He's led Apple since 2011. John Turnus, Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, will take over as CEO in September. In a statement, Cook says it has been the greatest privilege of his life to lead such an extraordinary company. Cook is credited with helping Apple's market value soar by more than $3.6 trillion. Okay, local sports now, and Colts Watch. Indianapolis Colts were back in action for off-season workouts ahead of the NFL draft this week. General Manager Chris Ballard talked about the upcoming draft and some off-season decisions with our Angela Morian.
Injuries, trades, and of course, the draft. All things covered by Colts General Manager Chris Ballard during his annual pre-draft press conference. The headliner? Alec Pierce. The Colts' top receiver underwent surgery to repair an ankle issue just after signing a max deal to stay in Indy. He'll be out until training camp.
For a lot of the season, he kept dealing with some pain in his ankle. Like it got to where he was really having to maintenance it a lot last year and the pain, and so he had to kind of fight through that. And at the end of the day, I said, look, do you want to, you can play with this. Do you want to play with it, or you want to, knock it out? So he decided to knock it out.
While Pierce stays, veteran corner Kenny Moore looks to leave, as he and the team mutually agreed to seek a trade.
Think very highly of Kenny, not only me personally, but organizationally. And I know the city feels the same way. And look, at the end of the day, talking to him, he just felt like it was time for a change. Because of our respect level for Kenny, we said, okay, those are not always easy conversations, but they were respectful and good, and we'll see how it works out.
Even without a first-round pick heading into this week's draft, Ballard says the Colts will remain active and aggressive throughout the draft weekend, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to move up.
I do think there's a real strength in that third, fourth, fifth round. Look, I do think linebackers pretty good. I think edge is good. I think there's some pretty good wideouts in this draft, kind of at every level. I think the interior of the O-line, I think there's some pretty good depth. And then I think there's some safeties that there's some depth at safety too. More mistakes are made because you'll pass on a really good player because you're trying to fill a need. You got to be very careful with that.
Ballard and the Colts set to be on the clock starting in the second round on Friday. Angela Morian, Wish TV and WishTV.com.
3 off-duty firefighters from Georgia are being hailed as heroes after they saved a person's life outside of a White Castle in downtown Indianapolis. News 8's Malia Van Ostrin spoke with them about what happened.
The shooting happened just after 3 a.m. Sunday on South and Illinois streets outside the White Castle near Lucas Oil Stadium.
It was bleeding a pretty good bit, so obviously stopping the bleed and clearing his airway, talking to him, trying to get him to talk back to us. He was consciousness level was. We also had some other individuals that were helping us, facilitate everything. So it wasn't just us out there. We just did the best we could do at the time.
Firefighter Gregory Baker says the three split up their duties to help the shooting victim.
We start kind of assessing the patient, and we see multiple gunshot wounds. So we go ahead and start getting direct pressure. Once Mabry gets out there, everybody's kind of getting ready, and we're kind of stripping them down, looking for other stuff we may have missed. And then PD shows up a couple minutes after we get out there. We relay some information to them to give it to the oncoming ambulance crew.
Firefighter Aaron Mabry brought out napkins and gloves, makeshift supplies used to hold pressure and to try to stop enough of the bleeding until the ambulance arrived.
Find out where they're bleeding or where the injury is and hold pressure, get some pressure on it. That's the best thing that's going to stop bleeding. And some people can make makeshift tourniquets if it's exposed on a leg or arm or something like that. They can take a belt and stop the bleeding that way.
The trio says the police department and ambulance showed up minutes later. Baker said their training and timing made all the difference. Although providing care after a trauma is normal for them, it was the first time they were right there as everything unfolded. All three say they were just doing what they've been trained to do.
If you ask any firefighter, that's why they get on the job. Even though we're in a different community, we, still able to do what we need to do for that gentleman.
IMPD found another man shot on Madison Avenue. He also survived. Police believe both men are connected to the shooting at the White Castle. They think some kind of fight led to the shooting. In Indianapolis, I'm Malia Van Ostrin for Wish TV and WishTV.com.
This has been your News 8 Daily. From Wish TV, I'm Hannah Mordeau. Watch us on Wish TV and WishTV.com.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast, a Wish TV News 8 update on demand. For even more, on demand and on the go. Connect with Wish TV on Facebook at WishTV.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.